Hi everyone, welcome to Xinhua Live. We are live streaming at Xinhua headquarters in downtown Beijing. I'm Liang Saiyu with Xinhua News Agency.
Hello there, and I'm Helen Bentley, also with Xinhua News Agency. So earlier today, the Supreme People's Court, or the SPC, presented its work report at the ongoing two sessions, which are occurring right now in Beijing. To offer us some insight on the content of this report, we are joined today by SPC Judge Zhang. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. So, everyone, judicial reform is one of China's top priorities. And with a commitment to ensuring the country has a fair and just judicial environment, this was actually included in China's 13th five-year plan, which spans from 2016 to 2020. But to achieve this, the SPC has been tasked with implementing measures that span reform, counter corruption, transparency, and wrongful convictions. But that's enough from me. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sai for our first question today.
Yes, so welcome Mr. Zhang. And yeah, I'm so glad to having you here. And compare with last year, what's new in this year's work report?
So this morning, the Chief Justice, Mr. Zhou Qiang, made a very good report, I say. Mm-hmm. And a lot of points that we regard as highlights points compared with the reports he made in previous years. I just mentioned a few. The achievements have been made last year. We have not done a lot of things in the judicial reforms, in the playing of the functions, to punish the crimes and to protect the legitimate rights, and to correct wrong cases, and another thing I didn't mention is the numbers. You see, in this report, we can find more than 100 numbers, and from these numbers, you can see the general picture of what is going on with the Supreme People's Court last year, what is going on with the courts at different levels around China. And another point that I'd like to mention is cases. A lot of cases are cited by the board. From these cases, we can see how the Supreme People's Courts and the courts at different levels doing their jobs and protect the people and punish the crimes, and the success or advancement we made in the judicial reforms.
Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned earlier, reform at the judicial level is a top priority for the CPC. As a foreign editor working for Xinhua News Agency, I have obviously worked with a lot of stories concerning judicial reform. One of them is the implementation of a circuit court system. Could you share with the audience the achievements of that, what it set out to do, and how it's going along?
Okay. Actually, the circuit courts of Supreme People's Court are the branches of the Supreme People's Court, and the effects and authorities of the judgments made by the circuit courts are the same with those made by the headquarters in Beijing. Mm. And actually, by the end of 2014, we set up two circuit courts in Shenzhen and in Shenyang, and they are pioneered in doing a lot of things for the reforms. You see, they are closer to the people, and so they just send the SPC to their doorsteps, and they are closer to the disputes, so it's easy for them to clarify the facts and to make the correct judgments, and they are closer to the locality, so they easily get themselves involved in the investigations of new problems, new issues that arise from the business activities. And what is more important, they are innovating on the new working mechanisms, and these mechanisms they innovated are very efficient. And last year they concluded the cases 3 to 4 times more than the chronicles do in the headquarters in Beijing. Mm-hmm. So it's very effective. And by the end of last year, we set up another 4 circuit courts in Nanjing, in Zhengzhou, in Chongqing, and in Xi'an. So it is the sign of the accomplishment we made for the overall layout of the circuit courts of Supreme People's Court.
I understand that another part of judicial reform is actually reopening cases where the sentencing has been put into question, and I'm talking about wrongful convictions here. Could you maybe explain to the audience a little bit about some of these cases?
So actually, there is a case mentioned by President Zhou Qiang in his report, the case of Liu Shubing. Liu Shubing was sentenced to death in 1995, and was enforced. The judgment was enforced the same year, and then his family members were very angry about the judgment, and they came to the courts, local courts, and they came to Beijing and to put up the petitions. And after a long and thorough review by the Supreme People's Court, we made the decision to retry this case. And by the end of last year, we made the judgment for the retrial, and we say, okay, Liu Shubing is innocent. So this case was of great significance, and it means that we now adhere to the principle of, say, human rights protection, and it's a principle entrenched by the Constitution. And now we stick to the principle of, centering on the court proceedings, and we focusing on the evidence other than the confession, and something like that. So, actually, it's part of the reforms on the criminal procedures. And you see, in the time before the judicial reforms, these principles are ignored, or were ignored by a lot of staffs or by some judges, and they just to see how they confessed. And the confession may be the very important parts, or may important considerations for the determination of the sentence. So all these things have been taken into consideration, and the principles I mentioned above now are adhered by the judges nowadays. So I believe the situation will be changed to the better.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Zhang, I have another question, because I noticed that there is a life imprisonment. It's the first time mentioned in the work report, and Chinese President Xi Jinping has announced late last year that the Chinese anti-corruption campaign has gained crushing momentum. So I know that SPC has also voted to keep up cracking down the corruption. So what have SPC achieved in anti-corruption efforts, and what will going to do as the next plan? So.
Okay, it's a very good question. You said about the sentence of a lifetime imprisonment. Actually, it's not new. And what is new is that it is there is amendment to the criminal law passed by the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, and according to this amendment, no compromise should be made to the life imprisonment to those criminals who has been sentenced to death with 2 years suspension. You see, and a case was mentioned by the report by Enpei. He used to be a high official, and we apply the amendment for the first time to his case, and you see, such an amendment was very threatening and deterring to these corrupt officials. And the amendment just tells them, okay, don't do anything wrong. Once you sentenced, so you will stay behind bars to end of your life without any chance to get free. So it's actually, as you said, it's a demonstration of of the crashing momentum, and it's a demonstration of the resolution of the governments and party to fight against the corruption through to the end.
Yes.
I noticed that we touched slightly on public litigation case, and I know there was a high-profile public litigation case on environmental pollution in Shandong. Could you elaborate for our audience on this, as China has pledged to cut pollution with determination and bring back our blue skies?
This is another case introduced by Mr. Zhou Qiang, and this is the first case tried by the people's cause about the air pollution. You see, the story was like that. The Shandong company, they kept discharging the pollutants to the air, and it was big damage to the surrounding atmosphere. And a public welfare organization put up a case to the local court and claimed the rights for clean air. So the judgment was made by the Dezhou Intermediate Court of Shandong Province and said, okay, you are the accused or the defendant was doing wrong things by constantly discharging the pollutants to the air, and the damage has been made. So the court ordered the defendant should make the formal apology to the public and compensate about 22,000 RMB for the recovery of the environment damaged by its dirty discharge. So actually, we emphasized on this work, and we issued several opinions. I don't know whether you know the opinions. Opinions is kind of documents issued by the Supreme People's Court, and to call for the judicial service for the green development, and we also issued interpretation together with the Supreme People's Procuratorate, and describing the criminal punishments for those acts of deforestation, those acts of the destruction of farmland, those acts of the environmental pollution. So these things has been done by the judicial organs, and I believe there will be very good results towards this direction.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a follow-up question. So how can China's judicial system to play a better role to make sure the environmental is protected, especially for the entities of like NGO, something like that?
Actually, China's courts are very active about the trial of these cases brought up by the procuratorate and by so-called NGO, but we say public welfare organizations, and it is a new system for the public litigations, and it is in the interests of the public, not the interests for the plaintiff. So we are very serious about these cases, and we are strictly according to the certain regulations and certain laws to punish those who have done something wrong or something involving the criminal behaviors, and to protect the rights of the clean air.
Yes, and we also noticed that there's in the work report, there's information-based technology are used in the judicial reform. And we also noticed that head of SPC, Zhou Qiang, the president, Zhou Qiang, has mentioned the smart court in last year's international conference. So can you elaborate us about what smart court is, and so is there any innovations in court system?
It'll be a long story.
Yeah.
So when you say smart court, we may look at in two directions. One direction is court system, smart court system. Another direction is smart court chamber. Yeah. I don't know whether you mentioned these two directions or only the smart court chamber. The smart court chamber is very simple. You see, nowadays a lot of chambers for court trials have been equipped with very advanced technologies. You see, in old days, there always typewriter sitting in court and typewriting without a stop. But now you don't see a clerk there, and you just the plaintiff or the defendant, they just express their opinions and utter their words, and instantly their words would transferred into the script, and saved a lot of energies, saved a lot of manpowers. You see, such kind of technologies, the digitalize of the papers, digitalize of the evidences, and such kind of technology have saved, say, about 30% of the work burdens from the court. It is estimated. So it is this direction. The other direction is the court system of the so-called smart court. When we say, we mean the smart court system. So it is a huge project, system project. Now we have the a network that connected all the courts and all the court chambers. Yeah, around China. We have more than 3,500 courts, and we have around 10,000 court chambers or courtrooms. All these courtrooms and all these courts are integrated with one net, and you just sit in a command center or information center in a Supreme People's Court. You see everything instantly, and what is happening and what is going on in front of a court or inside a court chamber. So this is connected by the internet, and also the internet also not only connected with courts, and also it's connected to some relevant agencies, departments. For instance, for the enforcement problems, we have set up a network system that is connected to some financial institutions, including more than 3,000 commercial banks, and it is also connected to the Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Public Security, and Ministry of Agriculture, and connected to the CAS office, to the railway office, to the customs, etc. Because these agencies or these departments are very helpful or are very important for us to restrict on those defaulters. Yeah. So for such kind of networks, for such kind of systems, we build them together and to form a core system that is very modern, very efficient, and very powerful. Yeah.
Exactly. I was going to actually pick up on President Xi's corruption campaign. He is doing wide-sweeping anti-corruption work across all sectors, and obviously the judiciary is one of those. What has been done to address corruption in the judiciary, and what happens to individuals implicated in corruption? And I'm particularly thinking about the Bai Enpei case, who was a former senior lawmaker. If you could maybe explain a little bit to our audience.
Actually, just now I mentioned this case, and Bai Enpei used to be very famous, and he had very glorious history, and he used to be a very good official, and he did a lot of things that is helpful to the local people, and the pity was that he had did something involved, or he engaged in the corruption activities or corruption practices. So he was sentenced to death with 2 years suspension. And what is unique or significant was that this was the first case that we applied the amendment, or so-called Ninth Amendment, to the criminal law. It just prescribes that there should be no commutation, no parole to the lifetime imprisonment that follow the suspension of the death penalty. So it was first case, and it was very deterring and frightening. And so up to now, we have the China courts have applied these amendments to 3 cases already.
Yes, just as Zhou Qiang earlier this morning has mentioned, that current anti-corruption momentum will not lose steam and vote to step up effort in an administration of justice in major duty-related crimes, and supports pilot reforms in national supervisory reform, which we believe will be, we can expect more and more like the crushing momentum in the near future. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. You see, there was a number. I mentioned there was a number.
Yeah, actually.
More than about
14,500 graft cases.
Yeah. And among them, 35 used to be the ministry level officials, and 240 used to be the bureau level officials. So there was, we are very powerful to crash down these officials, or corrupt officials in this case.
Of course. So do you have any questions, Helen?
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to just summarise some points today from the work report and share them with the audience. So last year, progress was made in fields including judicial accountability, trial procedures, and allocation of judicial power. And so I really like this because it was something from the President, so that the people can feel the presence of justice. It's about confidence in the system at all levels. And I'd like to share some key achievements with you guys. So the number of business-related cases that was conducted by courts at all levels was over 4 million last year, and that's an increase of 20.3% up from 2005. Yeah. Civil cases rose by 8.2% to hit 6.7 million. And there was also 1,333,000 environment-related cases too. Another area with great achievements was intellectual property rights infringement. And so there was 29 provincial level regions that set up an information sharing platform, which is what you were saying about before, about these courts being connected, so that law enforcement and criminal justice could be improved across the whole system. And moreover, on a larger scale, from 2013 to 2016, courts nationwide overturned 34 cases involving 54 people. And these were all deemed to be miscarriages of justice. And these examples illustrate the authorities' determination to adhere to rule of law and demonstrate their commitment to improving the judicial system here in China. Before we go, I'd like to ask, have you got any finishing comments that you'd like to share with our audience?
Okay, thank you. So, you see, as we are required by the people, so we should do our jobs quite well, and according to the constitutions and according to our laws, and to make the people have the feeling of justice in each and every single case. So we'll try our best to do in this direction. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for joining
you.
us today. And I just want to remind anyone that we will be doing our Good Evening China show this evening. So if you have any questions regarding what we're speaking about today, then feel free to leave them on our social media feeds.
Yeah.
And thank you ever so much. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Georgia.
everyone.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.